Political analyst Mike Agate joins us from London for more insights on politics there. Mike, good evening to you. Thanks for your time tonight on News at Prime. Firstly, let's talk a little bit about Rishi Sunak. What is it exactly that has, made him a front runner in this contest and ultimately the candidate to be put up for the position of Prime Minister?
Well, he was, of course, up against Liz Truss and a number of other people before, and in fact he got the biggest vote from the MPs. But then when it went to the country, the members of the Conservative Party in the country chose Liz Truss rather than him. But the MPs had already chosen him before, mainly because the Chancellor of the Exchequer is really the second most important person normally after the Prime Minister, and he was at the time Chancellor of the Exchequer, or had been Chancellor of the Exchequer.
Let's talk about the divisions in the Conservative Party, really, Mike, and the kind of role that Rishi is going to have to play in bringing the party together, because just even in the analysis that you've given around where he has been sitting in as far as the politics, it shows how divided the Conservatives are.
Yeah, all political parties, I think, are coalitions of some sort or other. There's to the right of they really want very little government and as low tax as possible, much closer to the sort of US economy. And to the left of the Conservative Party, they're much more centrist. And in fact, sometimes you could argue there's very little difference between a centre Conservative and a right-wing politician like Labour politician like Tony Blair, although they wouldn't say that, of course.
Do we have a sense of how exactly Sunak will run the country, given what he has said, even on public platforms, about his plan?
I don't think that we've really got much choice at the moment because of the economic state we're in. The high interest rates are going on at the moment, low exchange rate against the dollar. He's going to have to run it very tightly. And I would imagine, though technically he will be invited to form a government so he can choose whoever he wants, I imagine he will take on the Jeremy Hunt, who was appointed, was the second Chancellor under Liz Truss. And actually came in and started reversing much of the stuff that the other Chancellor was proposing to do. So I wouldn't be at all surprised to find that he keeps him on. And we will be following probably quite a tight economic policy with possibly tax rises and certainly not the tax cuts that were originally promised by Liz Truss.
Let's talk about then the kind of relationship that he'll also have to try and build with ordinary Britons.
Well, initially he's probably just got to build a good relationship with the other MPs, the fellow MPs in his party, because whatever he does ultimately has to be voted on and get through Parliament. I think he's quite a centrist sort of person, and he does subscribe to the main Conservative views of trying to lower taxation, but I think because he's worked for banks and hedge funds and things like that, he does understand how financial markets work, and he does really understand the fact that until we get the confidence of the international financial markets, there is very little we can do, certainly as far as tax cuts go.
Of course, that is not what some people want to hear, because with the increase in cost of living, the high inflation that Britain is going through right now, many ordinary citizens are looking for some form of reprieve, and they've looked at the office of the Prime Minister for that solution.
Yes, it's going to be a bit of a juggling act he's going to have to do here, because they're already committed to helping out on energy bills to some extent, and that is probably going to continue. At the moment, the commitment's only until the end of March, but I'm sure it will have to continue in the future to some extent, particularly because it does depend on the price of the dollar, because the price of the dollar does affect our fuel bills. But if he manages to steady our the pound against the dollar, that will certainly go some way to help. But I'm sure he will be having to cut expenditure in a number of departments, but he's still going to have to try and keep the benefit system going and keep payments into that. So it's going to be a big juggling act. And I think actually Jeremy Hunt, who was appointed under Liz Truss, has probably done a lot of this work for him. And we're probably going to hear a lot more on Monday when it's planned that a statement will be made, I believe.
Mike, when we look at the situation from a leadership stability perspective, 3 prime ministers in almost, as many months, not a good picture. Do you think he'll be able to at least stay in that position long enough to bring back some sense of stability?
Oh, I think because the Conservative Party has a big majority, I mean, really, the only way that he can be voted out of being Prime Minister is by a majority in Parliament saying they don't want him there or to lose votes in Parliament. And as long as the other Conservatives do stick with him, and I think a big lesson has been learnt here, and I'm sure that they want to hang on to their parliamentary seats as much as anyone else does. So they're probably going to, I think they're going to toe the line. Certainly the mood music is at the moment that they're going to get behind him.
All right, Mike Agate, we'll leave it there for tonight. He is a political analyst.